Today we are going to talk about why do sloths poop on the ground and other animal poop mysteries. You know, you may have heard things like shit's hitting the fan, shit's really fucked up right now, it's a real shit time. We're going to explore the other side of poop, the ways that it fits in the ecosystem, and we're going to talk about some animal poop mysteries. I'm Lehua Gray. I work as a product manager at Aunt Bertha. That's my day job. My night job is studying poop, as you will see. It's not really my night job. So first, the question that you're most curious about: why do sloths poop on the ground? And I just want to point out how weird this is, because in trees, sloths have vicious claws, perfect camouflage, they're out of reach, and they're adorably creepy. But when they're not in trees, their claws prevent locomotion. They move 3 times slower than when they are in trees. They're very vulnerable, and they're still creepy, way less adorable. Just look at that. And yet, they poop on the ground. Why? Once a week, they descend from their trees, go to the ground, and they bury their poop. And I've drawn here a scientifically accurate anatomical drawing of how a sloth could stay in the tree and still be able to poop to the ground. Not only that, it actually takes 8% of their weekly calorie budget for them to climb all the way down the tree and then all the way back up. For a notoriously lazy creature, that's a lot of calories burned. So we had our team of crack scientists come up with a number of hypotheses, which were all disproven. They're not afraid of heights, it's not peer pressure, they're not drunk, it's not an FAA regulation, there are no Illuminati involved, as far as we know. Here's what we do know. Fact: sloths primarily eat low-quality, low-nutrition tree leaves. Fact: many herbivores re-eat their poop, but not sloths. Fact: sloths move so slowly. There is a species of algae that grows in sloth fur, which I will refer to as sloth moss. Fact: sloths are naturally covered in moths who eat the sloth moss. Finally, sloth moss moths eat sloth poop as larvae. So I propose to you that sloths are growing the ultimate slow food. So sloths poop on the ground, the moths lay eggs on the ground, the larvae eat poo and pupate, the sloth gets remothed, and the moths take all that amazing poop nutrients right back up into the sloth to fertilize all of that moss. And then the sloth eats the moss. Sloths farm moths so that they can eat their own poop nutrients, repackaged into a food source that is so convenient, it's literally attached to their bodies, lipid-rich and high in protein. It's the circle of life. It's actually symbiosis. This particular form of symbiosis is mutualism. Mutualism is when all of the species involved in a symbiotic relationship are benefiting. The sloths get food, the moths get poop, everybody wins. Then there's commensalism. At least some members of the relationship benefit. This is a moth called a poop fly, drainfly. They eat poop, but they don't really spread disease. They don't really bother anyone. They're just cute little moths that eat poop. And then there's parasitism, which is when one of the species is harmed in the relationship and the other one benefits. This is a horsefly. Their larvae grow on poop too. And then they pupate, turn into flies, and they bite you. So while we're on the subject of symbiosis, let's talk about some unlikely interspecies friendships. Aren't they adorable? Let's talk about the cutest one of all, the relationship between ants and mollicutes. So the mollicute bacteria and the leafcutter ants love each other. But it's surprising because everyone knows that ants' #1 interspecies buddy is the fungus that they grow. So these leafcutter ants, on the left you can see pictures of them transporting leaves to their nest. They do all that just to feed these fungus friends of theirs. They farm these funguses and then they eat them. It's their only source of food. And these fungus have co-evolved with these ants. Each ant has their own species of fungus that they've evolved in parallel with. So what do these weird fried egg bacteria and these very industrious ants see in each other? The ants, they come from such different backgrounds. The ants come from a family of humble dirt farmers. The mollicutes come from a family of pathogens, pesticides, and murderers. What brought them together is co-parenting. What brings so many couples together? You see, the mollicute lives in the ant's tummy and makes food for the fungus. They make a very specialized, nutrient-rich food from the amino acids in the ant's stomach that can be used to sprout little baby mushroom spores. So they use this poop food to start new fungal colonies. So you could say that sloths and ants are both kind of indirectly eating their own poop. That's called coprophagia. It's actually really common in the animal world. And a lot of species do it a lot more directly. So take elephants, for example. They use coprophagia, poop eating, as a family bonding activity. So do all of these other animals. They all have their offspring eat the poop of their parents. And so you have to wonder, that brings us to our next mystery. Is eating mom's poop really the best family bonding option? Well, so imagine that you're an elephant and you live in the savannah with all of these happy little trees and you just want to eat them. Inside of each of those happy little trees are happy little cells. And those cells are each covered in cellulose, which is really hard to digest. Each of those little cells are like candy with the wrapper still on it. All those nutrients trapped inside that crunchy, undigestible stuff. So how do you get it out? Is the answer more symbiosis? It's more symbiosis. So each species has, again, co-evolved with species of bacteria that specialize on digesting the different plants that they typically eat. So an elephant will have a totally different bacterial cocktail from a mouse or an antelope or whatever else. But if you have this adorable little nugget born with a sterile belly, how do you get that great cocktail of bacteria from your stomach to your little baby stomach? Poop. But you know who's not? Which mammal has 2 thumbs and is not a big fan of coprophagia? This one. Yeah, so humans have a disgust reaction to poop, really strong, innate disgust reaction to poop. Why do you think that is? It's a fluke. It's because poop is a parasite's paradise. So all of these different parasites have to cycle from one species to another species throughout their life cycle. It's a really common part of parasite life cycles. And how do you think they get out of the first species so that they can get into the second one? Pretty often, there's only one way out, and it's the back door. So take, for example, Toxoplasmosis gondii. This is kind of the Beyonce of parasites. If you've heard of any parasites, it's probably Toxoplasmosis gondii. This is the most famous parasite. Not only that, it has moves and amazing range. Look at all of the different species that Toxoplasmosis can infect and how many different transmission vectors it has straight into humans. But you know what unites us and Toxoplasmosis? It's our love of these adorable little critters. So Toxoplasmosis, these adorable little critters whose poop we have decided to manually handle, once a week, once every couple of days, depending on the size of your cat. So to get out of those cats, pretty much it's a backdoor exit. But there's this other half of this life cycle here. You've got these mice and birds, prey animals. So if you're in a mouse and you wanted to get into a cat, there's a much easier way than convincing the cat to eat mouse droppings. You convince the cat to eat the mouse. So the two ways you can really do that is getting the mouse to approach the cat, which you can do by confusing it or making it aggressive. And since we handle the poop of these adorable little creatures on a regular basis, sometimes we get mind controlled too. So it turns out that toxoplasmosis is really common in humans, and it can lead to, or has been implicated in a whole lot of really crazy mind control stuff. Schizophrenia, changes in personality, poor reaction time, increased risk-taking. There's some speculative stuff about how it affects different genders. It's really wild how much it controls you. It's thought to be one of the major causes of car crashes across the world due to the poor reaction time and the increased risk-taking that it causes in people. So while we're not fans of Team Coprophagia, thanks to our disgust reaction, if you're going to count sloths and ants who farm with poop in Team Coprophagia, you really kind of have to count humans too. We do a lot of farming with poop, and it's a good thing because we create a lot of poop with our food systems. And it's really nice to be able to use it in our fields to fertilize our vegetables. But right now, actually, a lot of our fertilizers come from the Haber-Bosch process. This process creates artificial nitrogen. Poop is a naturally occurring source of so much nitrogen. The Haber-Bosch process was invented in the 1800s. And before that, we actually had to use a different method to get nitrogen onto our crops so that we could expand our agriculture. And that method was poop islands. Yes, there are entire islands made almost entirely of poop out there on the ocean, created by these lovely seabirds that nest for generations and generations on a single rock, slowly building its height over time. These islands are so covered in poop, it's literally the only material that they have for building their nests. This is a booby nest. The other big source of guano, nitrogen, in that era was bats. So at the time, guano was extremely desirable because you could use it to grow all kinds of stuff. I mean, it expanded agriculture and our carrying capacity, the carrying capacity of our planet for humans immensely. And it was very valuable. At the time, the UK imported 200,000 tons and the US imported 76,000 tons a year of guano from these poop islands. And you know what happens when there are millions of dollars of poop just floating in the ocean? You have poop wars. So there were 5 different countries that fought in very big battles, international battles over these poop islands. Who owns the poop? Not only were they fighting for poop, they were actually fighting with poop, because, fun fact, nitrogen is very explosive. It's a component in gunpowder, in cannonball, in explosives, in all sorts of things that you might use in a war. So the main source of ammunitions for fighting wars over poo, also poo. In fact, fun fact, almost all fireworks up until the 1800s were made out of poop. Yes, all fireworks were just poop explosions. So you're probably pretty tired of hearing about poop. So I'm going to stop talking about poop. I'm going to talk about something on the next slide. I promise it isn't poop. None of these things technically are poop. Yes, this is a strategy called mimicry. So with mimicry, each of these creatures are disguised as something that they're not. In this case, they're all disguised as poop. Mimicry is a form of camouflage, but it's very specifically hiding as something else. And this is one of my favorite poop mimics. So this is a species of ground nesting bird in Africa. And you'll notice something about its nest. Here's another different picture, different nest. Here's a different nest. And here's another one. And you can kind of see here, you can see the egg, and you can see how similar in size and shape and color those little antelope turds are. So this bird actually uses poop as its nesting site so that it looks like its egg is just another turd. So also, mimicry is not the only way that animals use their poop as a defense. So this on the left is called fecal shielding. So this creature, this bug, is literally just holding a shield of its own poop above it so that if an animal tries to grab it, they'll grab a wad of poop instead. On the right is, I think, fracas barriers. So this is when an insect takes poop and builds walls around itself to protect itself. So this is a caterpillar that builds permanent barriers around itself with its own poop. This is a sperm whale. So sperm whales have a really fun poop defense mechanism. If they want to escape in a hurry, they'll poop and they'll do a barrel roll, just shoot it in every direction. It creates this huge cloud of poop. It's like using their own poop as camouflage. And then these vultures, I mean all vultures, are the absolute kings and queens of using poop as a defense mechanism. Because not only do they use poop as a defense mechanism against their many parasites, so like they're standing in dead animals all day, and that's not great for your skin. So as a skincare regimen, vultures are constantly pooping onto their legs to clean their legs off of parasites. But not only that, they also projectilely poop at predators who may be invading their nest. They can also projectilely vomit. They are really good at just expelling fluids in every direction, and I've heard it firsthand. You take a creature that only eats already rotten meat and you convert that into poop, it's really not a pleasant experience. Vultures aren't the only ones who have a poop defense mechanism. Primates also throw poop as a defense mechanism. So we've all learned so much about poop and its place in the world and its many, many, many uses. And I just wanted to leave you guys with a poem, which I wrote about sloths, just to bring it all back home. Interesting tale about sloths. They have their own species of moss. And not only that, they have their own moths that live off the moss on the sloths. But how does this story end? Are the sloths and the sloth moths friends? The sloth grooms his long locks and eats from the moss, the protein on which he depends. Okay, that's it. Now you know.
Outstanding. And you have a little shout out for an organization there, Deworm the World.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it would be good to go with a thematic organization. So these guys, they mostly operate in sub-Saharan Africa. They treat, I can't pronounce their name, they treat people to prevent worms. So worms are really bad because they, like other parasites we have talked about, they control how your brain works, and they make you less able to think clearly. So what this organization does is they provide free deworming treatment at schools across the area where these worms are prevalent, which is Africa.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for the talk. And I'm thinking, I'm not seeing any questions. Let me take another look-see and see if there's anything else. I see applause. I see great jobs, super interesting, all that good stuff. But I don't see questions right now. So one of the things that I was kind of wondering about is why do you think they chose to eat the moss instead of the moths?
Well,
Like,
I think, yeah, good question. Seems more direct, right? So sloths are obligate herbivores, which means that they don't actually have any mechanisms in their stomach for processing the nutrients that they would get from carnivorism. They only know how to eat plants, and that's what they do.
all right, that would explain that. Let's see if we have any other questions. Oh, here's a good one. Any research on fecal transplants in humans for healthy bacteria?
There is so much interesting research on fecal matter transplants for humans. I didn't bone up on any new research before this presentation, so I would recommend doing your own, but it is looking like a really effective treatment for a range of things that you wouldn't expect. I think C. diff is a really big, obvious one. C. difficile is like extremely deadly. It's got a really high toxicity rate. It's really bad, and they've in the past tried treating it with different types of antibiotics, but at this point, because C. diff is mostly an infection that you get in a hospital, a lot of them are very antibiotic resistant. So something that people have been trying and that has seemed really successful is taking poop that has that great cocktail of human evolved bacteria from one human and just kind of putting it into the other to build a whole healthy ecosystem. And it looks really effective. It's actually used in a lot of, it's being tested in a lot of things besides C. diff, but C. diff is just like it looks good.
Excellent. That is exciting news. I know it's kind of causes so much misery, so anything that makes people feel better is a good thing. We have one last question, and then we're going to move to our next speaker, David. And the last question is, are you aware of any other animals besides koalas that eat their own droppings and then feed them to their young, as opposed to just presenting them to their young like the elephants?
Sorry, you broke up like right in the middle of the question. I missed like two very important words.
Are you aware of any animals besides koalas that chew up their poop after pooping it to feed to their young?
Well, so no, I'm not.
All right then.
Doesn't mean they don't exist, but I'm not aware of them.